Very good evening, good morning, or good night, and warm welcome to all of you for joining us today on this our premier event, Billion Dreams, the much-awaited Billion Dreams, our fourth edition, India's largest return to India hiring event and conference for NRIs. We are really privileged to have all of you on this panel today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are in the. It's a pleasure to introduce Mr. Sujit John today. He's going to moderate this session for us. And with over 15 years of deep focus on the Indian technology industry, Sujit is the driving force behind the widely spread Times Techies page, which highlights the remarkable progress and people in tech. He also initiated the popular Times of India Techies webinar series, where industry leaders discuss technology trends. A passionate follower of global and Indian macroeconomics, Sujit's insights will be valuable for the discussion today. Thank you so much for joining us, Sujit, and over to you. The stage is all yours.
Thanks, Shobha. No, it's really exciting what's happening in tech in India today. And that's the reason why I think this page that we started 5 years ago called Times Techies has become such a success. And it became from one page, it became 2 pages a week. And this is particularly a very exciting subject. Muni, who's here on the screen with us, has been encouraging us to write something about people who are returning to India. And I think this is a good opportunity to also for me to learn something from those who are here with us today. Can I ask all of you to first, in 60 seconds, tell something about yourself, where you work, your name, of course, that's on the screen anyway, where you work, when did you come back to India, and little detail about yourself in 60 seconds, and then we'll start the discussion. Guru, you want to start?
Sounds good, Sujit. Thank you very much. I'm Guru Bharat. I work for Google, and in exactly a week from now, it will be 17 years since I moved back from the US. I lived in the US in Boston. I went to grad school and then worked there for a couple of companies, Sun Microsystems and Oracle. And then after coming back, I worked for a bunch of different places before ending up at Google, where I work right now on the Android team. I've had a wonderful experience moving back to India, and I would love to share it with whoever has any questions.
Another Google person, Gautam, go ahead.
Thanks, Sujit. Hey everyone, I am Gautam, and I am also working currently for Google India. I moved back to India just a bit over 11 years ago, and I would say in a nutshell, it was mixed when I moved back, but I never hesitated. I always knew I had to move back. It was just a matter of time. And it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm also looking forward to sharing my experiences with all of you that are watching, and also learning from the wonderful panel that we have.
Thank you. Okay, AK?
Yeah. Hey everyone, this is Anamle. Everyone calls me AK because I'm in the US and I had a long name. And think just quickly about my background. I've been in the US for about 6 years. Returned to India in 2021. Had an itch to start something on my own. So I've been building 2 products, one called Chapter Me, other called Tricom, both in the AI space. One focused on video, other focused on social media marketing. So I think it's been a great journey so far, like learning a lot of things in the US, studying in Carnegie Mellon, working there in the US, and then now starting something on my own. So absolutely would love to share something from the startup space to the audience today.
Great. Muni is someone I known from his Dell Technologies days.
Sure. We go back decades. So, hello everyone. Rudra Muni. Go with Muni, like how everybody's name gets shortened in US. Lived there for almost close to 8-9 years, and then returned in 99, 2000, around that time. Had an opportunity after coming back to start the India Center, and which went through an acquisition as a startup by Cadence Design Systems. Subsequently, I was at Dell for almost 17-18 years. I was heading the Bangalore Center for 10 plus years on the R&D part of it. Now I'm not with any corporate. I'm more into investment in startups mentoring them, guiding them, and GTX is one of those advisory roles that I have. So the journey is very different than the corporate job usually, but otherwise thoroughly enjoying what I can do with the startup ecosystem that's really prospering very well in India. So good to be here, Sujit.
Wonderful. You were to have Girish of Micron also. We'll have to see whether he'll able to join or not. But let's start this. To each of you, I mean, what were the key reasons that prompted your return back to India, and how long were you contemplating it? How long were you thinking about coming back to India? Muni?
So, how long did it take? No, there was no contemplation in my mind or in my wife's mind. When we went, I went there as a bachelor, but even after the marriage, when I was there, and then when we wanted to come back, we really wanted to come back. And we did not even process the green card, anything like that, come back anyway. So there was no contemplation. I'm a wrong person to answer that.
Okay. How old were you? You must have been pretty young when you came back, is it?
So that, yeah, kind of 35.
35.
Around that time, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Guru?
For me, it was somewhat, not a great reason to come back, as in both my in-laws fell very badly sick, and so we didn't have any contemplation because there was nobody to look after them, so we kind of had to move back. And in hindsight, it was probably one of the best decisions my wife and I took, both for the reason that we were able to take care of my in-laws when they were ailing, and also because both my daughters grew up here in India. And I'm forever thankful that life arranged its circumstances in a way where that happened, because we truly think that was the best thing for my girls.
Wonderful. Gautam?
I would say, so by the way, I forgot to mention, I was in the US for about 14 years. And I would say I moved back for myself. It was all obviously for family, and I've been traveling in the Himalayan mountains for about 17 years. So that was a strong pull. But the reason I said myself is I wanted to take what I had learned in the US and then spread it, right? Through me, as long as I'm breathing and living. So that was the reason. And I think another reason was, regardless of the great times I had in the US, there was no soul connection, right? So the number of years, I don't think mattered for me. I loved the country, loved the land, learned a lot about the natives and the whole immigration cycle and all. But yeah, I knew I had to move back, and maybe in a follow-up question I'll address that. But the life circumstances happened to be such that it was the right window when I took it.
You were married and you have kids and all of that when you came coming back?
No. I moved back as a bachelor.
Okay.
And I got married after I came back to India.
Okay. AK?
Yeah, I think mine was an interesting journey. Just that I was in the US and never had a idea of coming back to India. It's just like it was going smooth, working in a good company in the US. Like life was good, but then something suddenly stuck. One night I woke up in the middle of the night. I was thinking what I was doing, and I had this like vivid, I remember it vividly that I wanted to. I was working in a startup while I had this thing like aha moment, saying that why not do something, because I was working my ass off to kind of get things done for the startup I was working in the US, and I think we grew the company to like millions of dollars. So kind of had this journey of doing things from scratch. So thought that why not do it myself, and and also I had this thing like India was kind of growing at that point in time. It was like pre-COVID. That's when I thought of I would move to the US. I'll move to India. But then COVID happened, and then I had to stay in the US for a bit before I came back in 2021. But I think it was the main reason for me to do something on my own, and India was the best place to do it, and with family and support and all of that. So that was the reason for me.
Okay. You were married with kids when you came back?
Yes, I was married and kids. Yes, that was a hard decision, but yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Your kids didn't say, "Daddy, let's go back" and all that?
No. I just had my son born at the time, so it was like very newborn, so it was easy for us to come back.
Okay. Guru, what about you? You have kids?
Yeah, I've got two daughters. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that. No, they didn't have any problems.
Not at all. They were pretty young at that time when we moved back, Sujit. 5 and 2. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Muni, kids, and you're
Yes.
35, you said?
Yeah, no, my daughter was born there, and after we returned here, my son was born in India. So I have a US citizen in the family.
Okay. Okay. But she was not old enough at that point to tell you,
No,
okay,
no,
you don't want to go.
she was, yeah, she was 2.5 years.
2.5 years, okay.
Yeah.
So, AK, what? No hesitations, nothing at all. I mean, family and you were all very clear you wanted to be back, is it? What about your
No, I
wife?
think it was definitely a struggle. I was like rowing against the river. Yes, definitely it was not easy. But I think this was the decision. I thought that from a long-term perspective, if I think about it, then I think I would not have any regrets. I think definitely a kind of a selfish decision, but I think I kind of convinced my wife and family to say that okay, let's try it out. I think now or never, right? So I think just wanted to try it. So that was the main reason for me to make the switch.
Okay. So, Guru, I mean, you also said no hesitations. I mean, but surely, I mean, after so many years in the US and all that, wouldn't it have been a little difficult? I mean, there's no possibility of bringing the in-laws to US, those kind of things were never crossed your mind at all.
No, they were not. Yeah, I had lived in the US for 12 years when we decided to move back. And until then, like, when Gautam was saying it was always something on his mind, I kind of envied him his clarity of thought when, that he already knew that at one point he would. I was just living in the moment, enjoying my life, not particularly thinking too hard about coming back. Like many Indians in the US, I would, we would go to parties, we would go to other Indians' houses where we would all kind of in a vague way postulate about how it would be to move back, right? We would just kind of in the air talk about, yeah, we should move back, or opportunities are great, etc. But no concrete planning was ever done. And as luck would have it, things just happened and we had to move back. And at that time there were no options to come back. There was a fair amount of trepidation because I was fairly early in my career at that time. I was an individual contributor, and moving back to India, if you just made the conversion and I didn't come back on an expat posting or anything like that. I just moved back and found a job here in India. So it's a significant haircut when it comes to a salary, right? If you just look at it as from dollar terms, converting it and then saying, oh my God, I'm making a fraction of that in India. Definitely that was not something that I welcomed with open arms. And then the aspect of having to come back to a world of a little bit of tension, being in a position where you have to take care of sick people, etc., while also adjusting to a new environment, while also bringing up two young daughters. I'd say that my wife bore a significant portion of the brunt of all of this compared to me. I had the great luxury of just waking up in the morning and going to work, whereas I think the real extreme pressure of having to make all these different variables work out, I think was definitely borne by my wife much more than and I have to admit that. And I give her credit for how much she has done in order to make our family successful in India. And with that, I think over time, slowly you get used to everything. And I do have some thoughts later about how to get used to everything and how to not just get used to, but actually thrive and be happy in everything. So I'll let the conversation flow in that direction at the right time.
Okay. Since you mentioned your wife, anyway, there's a question from Sonia, and that's something that I wanted to also ask all of you. I mean, those who were married at that time. So your wife's role, what they thought about it, and all that. Anybody wants to say something apart from what Guru just said? Muni, your wife was all supportive.
Sure. So she was supportive, and she was also working in US in IT industry again. She's also an engineer in E&C, and she worked for Sun Microsystems at that point of time in Bay Area. So when we came back, the opportunities were plenty, and a lot more now, in especially the product space, compared to what used to be dominated by the IT services. But that also was an opportunity in terms of product engineering mindset, and what we gained there was very much useful to bring some of the changes where we could get the jobs and get going, right? So in that context, the opportunities that me and my wife were seeing were kind of similar. There was there was almost a good alignment in that context. Both of us had one thing as a common thing that we had was surely we want to be with the family, we want to be with the friends, and we want to go for a housewarming to everything that we can enjoy as a large family together, right? And we are thoroughly enjoying after coming back, Alvar, for almost 25 years. So couldn't have been enjoying all of that, and a lot of fantastic memories. So
Okay.
yeah.
AK, anything to add to that?
I think I would add saying that for me specifically, it was not that easy. I think my wife was kind of comfortable in the US. She didn't. She wanted to stay there, away from in-laws, and all of that. Like the family and politics surrounding that, right? I think everyone knows who's married. But I think the decision was that of course we were not going to stay with in-laws, but around them, surrounding them, who they could come once in a while and check, come visit us. But I think it was a decision I had to kind of make. I think I was telling you before, right? I think it's a decision, but I think I had to convince her over a period of time. So I think COVID really helped me kind of make that transition, and then we can finally decided to come back.
Okay, nice. Cultural shocks or challenges that you faced when you came back. I know Guru also wanted to talk about that, but Gautam, anything that you've did?
So I think in my case, I never had huge gaps, even though I stayed in the US for almost 14 years. Since I joined Google, right, for the last remaining 7-8 years, I would always visit India once a year. So there was a joke in the office: Gautam never falls sick, he never takes a damn day off, and then all of a sudden he disappears for 30 days. Right? So lo and behold, that's the only time I would take a vacation. Obviously, I was single, get pretty fit. So I was always I have some friends who seem to have fallen out of touch, right? With India, with the dynamics, with the problems we have here. I call them you're a touch away from reality. So for me, there was never a gap. I would visit India once a year. I would take time to travel. I would take time to connect. I would, keep up to date basically with whatever was happening in India. So in terms of culture shock, I would say the only thing that was unique in my case is I had never had a job in India. So I went at a very young age. I was a student, then I was a student again, then I was a dropout, and then I was working, right? So the only thing that was in the back of my mind, and my relatives warned me, hey, Gautam, you'll be back in 3 months. I was like, why? There's Indian politics. You never worked in Indian offices. I said, we'll see. We'll see which way it goes. So that was the only thing that I was skeptical about. But as luck would have it, I was back again in Google. So the companies like Google, at least in Google, I can say there is not much of a culture gap, no matter which office you go to. Right? So it's pretty consistent. We have a word called Googliness. Which I should mention it. But so yeah, in that case, I think the normal bureaucracy and the things we go through in our daily life, living in India, other than that, there's not much of a shock there.
Okay. Guru?
I like Gautam. When I lived in the US, not every year, but I'd say every year and a half. Pretty certainly, I used to come back, and I had a few practices, a few quirks. So whenever I landed in the airport, I would insist that I would drive from the airport back home, and I just would get used to everything about India. India is a very immersive place. You land and it envelops you. You're kind of surrounded by the sights, smells, all the different mores and customs very, very quickly. So you feel even a week after landing here that you've lived here forever, right? I think a lot of people from the Indian diaspora who have come back to India, even for a holiday, feel that way. And things change very rapidly here as well. You go for a week and come back, and suddenly there's a new apartment complex being built close to where you live. I mean, I exaggerate, but only slightly. And this is something that I didn't feel anything dramatically different. Yes, certain things, the aspect of having to travel long distances to get to the office, the traffic being pretty heavy. I used to live 5 minutes away from my work when I was in the US. So I had the great pleasure of actually coming back home every afternoon for lunch and seeing my daughters and also playing with them when they were little. I also had the pleasure of calling my wife and saying, I'm going to be leaving now, and she would start making the tea and I would walk in through the door as the tea was ready. Like, it was literally like that. Anyway, those kinds of things are really hard. Even if you live close to the office, I think in India you can't, unless your office is on the same stairwell and you're just climbing a couple of floors down, it's not going to happen. But other than that, I'll tell you one quirk which I found funny, and also it was definitely a cultural difference. I was so used to, over the period of time that I lived in the US, there are a few items of civility that you kind of acquire, like holding doors open wherever you are, right? You kind of, it just becomes automatic. You smile, and with a flourish you open the door for somebody behind you. In India, I found myself opening doors and staying there for a long time as the streams of people just kept walking past. I very quickly realized that while it's good to open the door and let maybe a couple of people pass, you also have to look out for yourself and get in through the door. Otherwise, you'll just be left holding the door open for a long time.
Muni, you want to add to that?
No, so it's not the challenges as such. It is the other way. I enjoyed from the day one. Surely, I couldn't have afforded a car driver, right, or a maid. Several such things were the luxury, and obviously before going there it was not there, but after coming back could afford that. And some of those are not exactly the challenges. Those will actually free up your time to compensate for several other things. Absolutely, you will lose some time during the traffic and all that, but if you have the car driver, your laptop is open and you can keep going with that, right? So that way, found some ways to manage that so-called loss of time, but thoroughly enjoyed several things that I don't have to do. Otherwise, I had to do in US, right? So it was the other way.
Okay. AK? AK, we can't hear you.
I think you're on mute, AK.
Are you muted? No, we can't hear you, AK. What is the problem?
I think you said right back.
What about things like pollution and all that? I mean, wasn't that a concern at all for any of you? Traffic, of course, is. Those kind of things.
Yeah, maybe this is where I'll jump in with jump onto my soapbox a little, Sujit. I think no matter what you do or where you are, you have to kind of resolve to enjoy where you are without resorting to constant comparisons. I think that's the secret to happiness anywhere. So when I lived in the US, I thoroughly enjoyed my life there. When I live in India, I thoroughly enjoy my life here. I don't sit here thinking, oh my God, the air was so fresh there, the grass was so green, the hedges were so beautifully trimmed, and the traffic was so light. No. At the same time, when I visit the US, I don't sit around saying, oh my God, the Indian food is so much better in India, the people are warmer and less transactional, whatever. I don't do that, right? And so I think that's a huge part of moving back. Whoever in the audience is planning to move back, the first thing you'll have to resolve to do is you should not compare the two things, because they're two different things, and you're moving back for certain reasons. Focus on those reasons and enjoy those reasons, and really make up your mind to make a go of it and really love it here. Otherwise, it will be a torture. You will every day go against the grain and feel like you're compromising, and before you know it, you'll start feeling like you have to move back. And so, in that sense, no, I didn't think about pollution. I didn't worry about it, and just lived and resolved to be happy. That's it.
Okay. Gautam, whenever the Delhi pollution gets to you, you go to the Himalayas, is it?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not as evolved as Guru. Sorry, I think I need to send an email to get on a mentorship program. But no, I do miss the fresh air. But I would not say I miss the fresh air of the US. It's just general thought. I think sometimes the human side gets the best of me. I would say, I mean, I've been on a lot of forums and people say, what is the one thing that you miss about the US? I always tell them it's the highways, it's the freeways. Because I went as a kid, it took me a couple of 3 years actually before I could even could drive in India. I still can't drive a manual car, by the way. My car is an automatic, that's why my wife hates me. So I think driving is something, not really the pollution. I mean, there's all kinds of pollution of mind, pollution of senses, pollution of the air. But yeah, as Guru says, right, you have to make peace with it and focus on
what's good here,
making the best of it.
Yeah. AK, your audio okay?
Yeah, I think, yeah, all good. You can hear me, right? Awesome. So I think one thing, I think there are a few things. One is the culture in India is very different from that in the US. So I think it's like, you can't compare apples to oranges, right? They're two different things, as Guru was telling. So I think the most important thing for me was in the US, I had I was able to kind of be independent in the sense that I was able to do whatever I want to. But when I come to India, of course, the restrictions from parents, the society, and all of that is there. And that's the only thing that I feel is a disadvantage. But apart from that, I think you don't have the restrictions of being a non-citizen or an immigrant and all of that. So that is kind of overpowers other things. And I think that kind of gives me the freedom to do whatever I want. So I think that's more important for me. And that's what I see the differences.
Okay, let's switch tracks a little bit and talk about your work. Tell us, your experiences in the US and wherever else you work. How has that helped you navigate things in India and India itself? Have you seen it change a lot since you were here? Obviously, you see it's changed crazily, but what kind of changes have impressed you? Muni, you've been here a long time now.
Yes, absolutely. So the best of the lessons that I have learned there and what I'm able to bring that within my team and as a part of the culture, the so-called commitment to the quality, commitment to the schedule, and a so-called professionalism. Some of these are fantastic there, and even though it was only few years of my life in US, that actually made me a much better engineer, much better manager, and constantly I try to get to that during my one-on-ones or town halls and presentations, constantly reiterating to the team members and the next generation of the engineers within India. And universities also get opportunities to talk to them. And sometimes you get this kind of a question, right? Okay, what's so different here? How can we be like that? And that has actually a big change that I'm observing over, say, last 2 decades. Product engineering mindset is very much is happening, and that's how all these startups and ecosystem is really thriving, right? So I try to bring those, and I'm sure Guru, Gautam, and AK, you would probably resonate with that. And especially when you have the global role, it is much easier to compare, okay, this engineer in the same grade and this engineer in the same grade, how do they behave, right? So very easy to see it and motivate the people here, because they're all aspirational here in India. But at the same time, that behavioral part and the commitment to hold on to their commitment is at most. So some of those have been what I'm able to bring in, and people respect me, people hear me out on those. Thank me for that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Some professionalism, discipline, product engineering mindset. Guru?
I think I will agree wholeheartedly with Muni. I do. I had a wonderful stint at Sun Microsystems where Muni said his wife worked, and I still treasure those days because of what I learned from my colleagues. And I think in particular that sense of ownership and the sense of adherence to certain things that make it easier for people to work with you, right? You commit to something, you commit to a time, it happens on time. There's a certain predictability and reliability that gets baked into your own persona also, thanks to absorbing it from the ecosystem. That was definitely a very big change for me when I came to India, because in the office, I would say, as Gautam mentioned, the culture is very similar, at least in the companies that I've worked in, to what it is in the US. And I've mainly worked for American multinational companies and European companies. And but still, in the rest of life in India, you engage any person from the services industry, be it a carpenter, plumber, electrician, whatever. You see that timeliness is not a peculiar Indian trait. It's an exception when we actually see it, and that is a little hard to swallow in the beginning, and you have to make allowances for it and accommodate and make adjustments. But at work, I feel not being that close to HQ. Like for me, India, most of the companies I work for are American companies. Decision making, definitely you do realize, is very HQ centric. So the closer you are to HQ, the easier it becomes, and so you have to make allowances for that. You have to put in extra effort to build the right advocates and sponsors within your headquarters and other locations that your company is in order to make sure that you're effective in doing the right thing in your job. And these are very mindful exercises and practices that you have to follow when you work in India, which maybe you didn't have to think about that much when you were working in the US. So career management and figuring out how to actually create impact and value, you do have to take some mindful decisions, especially related to how you influence people and stakeholders outside. And that's a muscle that slowly you build and it grows over time when you're here.
Okay, some adjustments required. AK, what the culture that you have in your organization, your startup, very influenced a lot by what you saw in the US?
Absolutely. I think the few things work in India and few things don't. Especially if you think about the remote, like working remotely, right? That definitely not works in India. I think it's not very easy to kind of work with people remotely, especially the culture here with the people working from home. It's kind of difficult for them to kind of focus and work. So I think one thing that I found did not work in US India was like working remotely. It was always better to work in one location and be focused on like the building the product, or else it kind of drags and slows down. I think that's something I felt. But apart from that, one thing I really liked is from a cultural standpoint, trying to kind of embed that into the company from day one. I think that's very important for any company, right? I really learned that in the US, and I kind of always kind of go back to culture whenever building a company. I think that was the most important piece that helped me build the company.
Okay. Gautam, want to add to that?
Just for the sake of time, I would say plus one to everything that has been said already. One thing that I would say is, since in my case, I've pretty much only worked outside of a non-profit company with Google, so I haven't seen a lot of changes, as I said earlier. But if I had not worked for Google, right, what you bring from the US, as Guru said, right, discipline. If you say it's 3 p.m., it's not going to be 4 p.m., right? Getting the job done, decision making. You can still try and inspire others, right? Infect others with those traits, with those attributes. And I'm sure all of us try to do that on a daily basis. It can get frustrating at times, whether that's in the office, because you have to remember, even though, for instance, you might be working for Meta or Google, it's the people, it's never the company, right? It's the people who make the culture. And we are predominantly working with Indians, so I would be lying if I said I have never felt frustrated working in Google India. It happens, right? Because after all, it's a culture thing. It's not company is not a living entity, right? It's the entity that lives because of the people. So I think you can do your best, try to inspire, try to bring in the good things, learn from others, but also what you bring because of your global and diverse experience. spread it across, changes things.
So, I mean, I know some of you have answered this to some extent already, but as global Indians, I mean, you think you can play a really beneficial role in India today, and is this the right time to return? Is the message for all those who are considering it or living in elsewhere now? Muni?
So sure. Is there a right time? Purely depends on what you want in life, right? So if that clarity exists, then it's easy to answer that. So when I moved 25 years back, was that the right time? I think it was surely the right time. It worked very well for me. And Guru, when he moved probably 10 years back, was that the right time for him? Yes, it was the right time, right? So what you want will probably help to answer that than anything else, right? That's how surely the landscape of what IT industry or several more, say aerospace media or the semicon or the pharmaceutical, some of these are truly emerging sectors where the innovation was not happening, and now there is a lot more from an investment perspective, from the talent and the surely people really want to come and tap the opportunities to do the business also, right? So the opportunities are much larger, maybe 10 times, 50 times more compared to how it was, say, a couple of decades back. That's how I see it. The startup ecosystem that I'm thoroughly enjoying now practically did not exist, right? Doesn't mean that the companies did not start then, but this environment, this kind of dynamics and opportunities absolutely did not exist. So opportunities are a lot more now is what I would say.
A lot more now. Guru?
I think totally agree with Muni in terms of is there a right time? I think that's a very personal decision, but maybe I'll answer it slightly differently. So the world is flatter today than it has ever been. So in that sense, and it has shrunk also in size in some sense. So earlier there used to be a marked difference between the life you would have in the US and the life you would have in India if you just looked at material positions. The kinds of cars you drove, the kinds of products you consumed, the kinds of TV shows you watched, the way you absorbed popular culture. I think all of those have shrunk dramatically. You are able to get the same products. The prices may differ this way or that way. You are able to drive the same kinds of cars. You're able to watch the same shows. And information has become available across the world in the blink of an eye, regardless of where you are. So in that sense, you're not going to find it dramatically different living here for those reasons, at least, right? So that way, yes, it is easier to move today than ever before. Then if you look at, there are multiple questions that I see from the audience as well. And I think from a work perspective, more companies in the US especially know about India. Several colleagues of mine are better traveled in India than I am, like American colleagues of mine who live in the US. They have come to India and traveled much more than I have. In fact, one of my colleagues, when I was in another company at PayPal, he was such a big fan of Bangalore that he even knew how to make majge huli, which is a very, very Kannadiga dish, which is amazing. So, so the way in which you're able to come here and start working, especially if you work for a multinational company, is I think people understand India much better now. They understand the nuances of the time zones, etc. So it is far less an alien, exotic place today compared to how it was before. Nobody thinks of snake charmers and tigers on the roads or elephants being used for public transport anymore. At least I hope not.
Absolutely. Gautam, AK, you want to add to that?
I think there are still some people will find who think India is a land of snake charmers. I would say I get a lot of questions in my LinkedIn inbox. When do I know if it's the right time to, right? I think everybody has a decent idea what's happening across the world, right? Job market, economy, technology, alien invasion, or what have you. I think thinking as a human, it's more of a personal decision. It's about personal readiness. Are you ready to take the plunge? It will be a plunge, trust me, for everything that has been spoken earlier. But I think it's a decision where you have to convince yourself. Actually, you don't even have to convince yourself. It just dawns upon you that I have to move back, right? Everything else just fades away. It's about prioritization. For me, my parents, myself, and mountains and making a difference was the priority. To be very honest to everybody on this panel and whoever is listening, finding a job was not even the last thing on my mind. All I was focused about was next 2 to 3 years I would be traveling. I did not want one-on-ones. I did not want to earn a paycheck. Obviously, I had reached a stage where I could support myself. Right? I just wanted to travel, teach, and this romantic idea of teaching guitar to kids somewhere in the mountains. And I'm proud to say I did that. And I did that because I had reached a stage in life where I knew I had to move back. Obviously, today in 2024, world is flatter. The infra is different. Opportunities are different. India is even ahead, even in, if you think about US and the payments, right? There's no such thing as UPI in the US and it's still in infancy. So the world has changed. I think for me, I would say to everybody, it's more about what's in your heart and how do you think about that.
Okay, quick one. AK, you want to add?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is that it's definitely a personal decision. I think you take a decision when it's the right time for you to move. I've been thinking about this for a while before I made this decision. It was not like a decision I made right away. So I think there are a lot of things involved, like financial independence. You're able to kind of lead your life after coming to India, have the runway and all of that. So I think I had thought about that before I moved to India. And I think one more thing I would say is that if you're kind of trying to start something on your own, right, it's very important to have that network. And it's always good to build a network upfront before you come to India. So that's what I did. I kind of took a step to kind of be more proactive and then kind of build a network. And that really helped me out as I moved back. Or it'll become very difficult if you want to do something on your own. I think that's the one thing that I would say help me.
Okay. I just want to add I totally agree with what all of you have just said. I mean, as a journalist, I've been covering tech for several years now, and particularly going around Bangalore. I know Bangalore very well. Great example. This is the conversation, the kind of campuses that are coming up today. Absolutely world class. And you meet any CXO coming into India from US or wherever, everybody says uniformly that the employees here are the most enthusiastic, energetic, innovative, and they are doing some of the most cutting edge work in the term that we use a lot here is called the global capability centers. These are these large tech centers of companies like Google and PayPal and all of that, Dell that Muni worked in, PayPal that Guru worked in. Massive centers that are bringing in technologists, operations guys, combining them, the banks, the retail companies, the healthcare companies, massive centers doing absolutely cutting edge work, state-of-the-art office campuses. And like Guru also said, now today you have literally everything available in India. Residential accommodations are absolutely world class as well. I think they are world class in many ways. Products you get everywhere. What you need to tolerate sometimes is the traffic, of course, and a little bit of the pollution. But otherwise, I think it's a great opportunity to come back. Some great questions here. We asked one question of Sonia's already on family. Part of it. Sonia has another question on how did you build your community and network again back in India? I feel it's a scary jump entering into a job market where you have solidified connects for a long time. What advice do you have? Anyone?
So I'll take a stab to begin with. Now, I don't think, especially if we go after the classmates network, and all of them would have also grown and they would be doing very well in their own sectors or the industries, right? Some of them may have started their own business. Now, very easy to get connected back to your alumni. So your own batchmates, maybe juniors, seniors, get connected. And it might look like you lost so many years and you have not talked to them at all, and will they even respond to you? Absolutely they will. And because you live together as batchmates, probably in the campus for 4 years or 8 years, 10 years, depending on how long you were there as a residential student, right? So that network absolutely always connects, right? And that's the reason Guru can probably connect this. We call this the chedi dos, right? So it's absolutely, it is true. Doesn't matter when in life you want to go back to that network, it works. So do you have to go back for the reason that you are coming back? Not necessarily, right? So just to know what is happening to chit chat, it will help. And that network, absolutely, you don't have to worry about. It's always there for you to tap it. And I also talk about the give and take. Are you giving to that network? Then you have a right to take it from the network. Otherwise, it's a questionable, right? So otherwise, absolutely, a lot more. Many people will be amongst your relatives. Talk to them. You will be able to get connected back. And I don't think they will see that, okay, no, this person didn't bother to talk to me for 5 years, 10 years, and so they will still entertain you. That's part of how our Indian culture and the family bonding works, right? So it should be fine.
The Indian networks will help. Yeah, Guru.
The only thing I'll quickly add to that is that Indian workplaces are the kinds, Sonia, where people form social bonds which are very tight. Like a lot of young people in India, obviously, you know that India is reaping the demographic dividend. So you'll have a lot of people in the US who are obviously friends with their colleagues, but it's very different in India. Most of them have their only friends inside the company. So most of them hang out at work as well as after work with their colleagues. And so I would say it's fairly easy to create friendships in the office in India. This is one where I know that you've written saying that you feel like it's a scary jump. But honestly, when you actually experience it, you will find that it's quite easy to fit into a workplace in India. You don't have that sense of strangeness or newness like you do if you were to enter a cold, unknown workplace in any other part of the world where you feel like you have to strive hard to fit in. Here, somehow the system is always where people are curious, they'll come talk to you, they'll want to include you. So it's actually, I have found that it's always been quite easy.
Quite easy. Yeah. Ira Malhotra had the same question. Anyway, there's another interesting, this is something that people always talk about. How has, Ayan Malik asking, how has your perspective on work-life balance changed since returning? Yeah, you always get a feeling that work-life balance somehow is better in some of these Western countries than in India. I mean, in India, we seem to be driven to work all the time. So, I don't know, Google could be different everywhere. But what, Gautam, what is your experience?
I think it has a lot to do with obviously with the location, because it's a global world right now, right? And a lot of us feel that, hey, we have a lot of night meetings. And it's not only in Google, it's across all the companies, right? Stakeholders are in the US. If it's an engineering company, engineers are in the US, and you have to take night meetings. So in night meetings, they don't necessarily mean that you have a messy work life. Obviously, it'll hit your night hours. But to answer your question, my perspective has not changed. I do what I have to do. Hours will differ, right? If my meetings are on Tuesdays and Thursday, I'll make sure I make time for myself, my personal interests. You have to have a life outside of work. On Monday night or Tuesday night or whenever I don't have meetings. So perspective should not change. You should always prioritize your mental health, your well-being. Don't kill yourself. Obviously, all of us want to succeed, but it's an ongoing journey. It's a lifelong journey to arrive at that point. You don't kill yourself. I don't want to use that word, but you have to watch out for yourself, right?
You
succeed,
have to watch out for yourself.
Yeah, succeed, but always take care of your health. That's the only way you will succeed at work. If you're not well, you will not be able to go.
Okay, Muni, was Dell here in India different from what you saw in the US?
So I never worked for Dell in US.
I know. But
so after managing the teams there, the commitment is pretty high in Austin as well as here, right? So But at the same time, we as leaders got to create that work-life balance. To what extent am I triggering that imbalance as a leader, as a manager, right? So, for example, on a Wednesdays and Fridays, I said, okay, I will not have any calls with the US. After 5, no, right? So if as an engineering manager, I was pushing my boss also not to have it at least 2 evenings of the week, no. And sometimes, yes, there are absolutely exceptions, but you got to push that envelope. And people in US are accommodative, and there are cases where I would have made presentations at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. also. But if I do that on a weekly basis, I'm in trouble, right? Once in a year, twice in a year, yes, I'm a part of creating that culture. Is what I'm saying. So, folks in US are sensitive. In Europe, absolutely sensitive. No issues there. They got to push it and make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we have AK back, but
Yes, I'm back.
You're back. Okay, there's this question on those who have, for those who have transitioned into entrepreneurship. How does your experience differ from those who return to work in established? In the US also, you are in startups, is it, AK?
Yes. I was working in a startup, yes, over that as well. But
Okay.
after coming here, I was also doing that. But I think one thing I felt the difference was that being something on my own is definitely much more harder. And I think I think I learned that along the way.
It's harder to do it's harder to do in India, you're saying?
Yeah, I think even with the support network, right? But I think all the innovations, all of that happening in the US. So I felt that even though it's easier, the process and all of that, but the cutting edge stuff is happening in the US. So it's always better to kind of have a base over there. And that's where the US is where the money is. So I think always for a startup, I would recommend that you sell to the US and build from India. And that's always been helpful for us as well.
Okay. Priyadarshini Tilak asking, what is the right timeline to apply for jobs in India before returning to India? Is there something like that? Anybody can comment on that?
I can give it a shot. From my experience, and this was I'll be dating myself by saying that this was back in 2007 when I did this. I think it was fairly easy. Even now, the number of jobs in India is like really high compared to any other part of the world, I feel. And so it shouldn't be that difficult to find a job, but the job that you want and you feel comfortable with, I'd say give yourself a good 6 to 9 months, because you'll have to interview, you'll have to kind of do your research. In parallel, you have to figure out where do you want to live, where are these companies located, what does it mean from a work-life balance perspective in terms of commute, all of that. So there are a lot of parameters that you'll have to balance out in order to make the right decision. So giving yourself more time than less is obviously one way to make sure you take the right decision.
A related question from Subhranshu Panda. What initiatives did you deploy while staying abroad to get your profile and company in India? Anything?
I just use my network. I think most of us, would have relied on just finding people within the companies in India to reach out to and figure out what roles are open and things like that.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
True. Tapping the network, and especially if you have spent 10 years, 15 years in the industry, and you want to go through your network than the job portal, right? Obviously, you won't do that. So that reference actually works very well, because that person is also going to tell you a lot more about the culture and the type of work that is happening. And you have to have more homework by asking the right set of questions. Is the commitment to India Center, is it for the cost reason, or is it for the talent? Is it for the innovation? What is the reason that that company is trying to do something more in India, right? That type of a long-term objectives, like you said, the GCC, Global Capability Center, right? What are they? What is envisioned for those GCCs in India? Some of those will answer you. Are you going to have the type of role and the responsibilities moving forward, say after 5 years, after coming back after 5 years, right? So some of those absolutely those homeworks have to be done. The network is the right way. The companies like GTX, some of the executive search firms can also help, but you have to do your personal homework anyway.
Yeah, you have to do your personal homework. But as Guru was saying, from whatever we hear, I mean, right now, I think the jobs are, I mean, India seems much better off than most other countries right now. Harshvardhan Singh asking, looking back, what would you have done differently during the entire transition? Anybody who wants to take? Gautam, anything that you would have done differently?
No, not really. Not in my case, not a thing. I planned my exit. I took 6 months. I actually informed my team 6 months in advance that, hey, I'll be flying out. I knew, as I said earlier, right? I knew I wanted to do NGO work, teaching work for the next 3 years. And I honestly, in my personal case, since I was not married, my family was fully supportive. My dad said, live your life. So I didn't have the burden of the society and the family. So as far as I was concerned, I knew what I was going to do in my next 3 years. But in general, there has to be some planning that needs to go in, right? I mean, it has to be a mix of heart and mind both. Don't just feel that I'm missing home, let me just go back and I'll figure it out. I'm sure all of us do that, but yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
Okay.
So let me add to that. What I could have done something different, not from perspective of US to here, but what I did not do in US before coming, right? So I think the network of friends and colleagues that I had there, after coming back, I did not nurture it. I did not hold on to it. So now I feel that that network and the set of people were fantastic. For whatever reason, it was not the same company when I moved in here. And the technology of communication is very different now. It's easier to stay in touch. But even though I was traveling almost every quarter, could not have ignored spending some time over a coffee or a dinner and things like that, right? So I feel I should have held on to that set of people who helped me there in US, with whom I had a set of professional relationship. So that I should have done better.
You should have done that better. Okay. I know we are running out of time, almost out of time. So one closing remarks from all of you, and you can probably also address Bichali's question on India or US now. So your closing remarks on this whole conversation that we had, your experience, and what do you think? Should it be India or US now? Guru, go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sujit. Bichali, India now, for me, for sure. And, in closing, I'll say that obviously you're talking to a panel of people who have moved back and are happy that they had moved back. In a parallel universe, you could have maybe a different panel discussion happening with some people who moved to India, didn't like it here, and moved back to the US. You might hear a very different conversation, right? Of course, the moderator of that will be a far less charismatic and smooth figure compared to Sujit, I'll have to say. But if you were to hear that, you might end up taking a different set of conclusions from what you've heard today. So I think, it's a very big decision. It's not for everybody. But many like us, you're just seeing 4 or 5 of us here, but I can assure you there are hundreds of thousands of people who made this move back, and a significant percentage of them are happy. And that should give you some confidence. And but nonetheless, you'll have to do ample research on your own to convince yourself that this is the right decision for you. But all the very best.
Gautam?
Yeah, as Guru said, it's a personal decision. I would say in my closing remarks, if you dig it, do it. And if you really dig it, do it twice. These are the words of one of my favorite musicians, Mr. Jim Croce. Listen to your heart, take the plunge. If you have the luxury of being single like I was, take risks. Right? That's why I tell young people, go out, take the experience, and then when you come back, you're better equipped to tackle the challenges in the office, outside of the office. So for me, India, hands down, no questions about it.
India, hands down. AK? We can't hear. AK is gone again. Oh, these connections have been a problem. Muni?
So absolutely India now, no doubt about that. As a closing remark, what I would also suggest is don't be stuck in a dilemma for too long. One leg there, one leg here. Let me go and try. If it works, fine. Otherwise, I'll come back in 6 months. No, put your brave heart into the decision and put the 100% into making it happen. And for whatever reason, at least even after 2 years it doesn't work, fine, go back, right? At least you would have tried variety of things and variety of people would have helped you, and even then it doesn't work. Yes, you made a very sincere effort, right? 3 months, 6 months is not going to cut it, and part-time here, and if my own company has the GCC there, and then only I'll move. Variety of those few of us would have heard this syndrome, X equal to X plus 1 next year, right? That X equal to X plus 1 just doesn't work in this decision. You've got to just decide, and even if you decide to stay back, that's fine. Don't be in that the Trishanku for too long. It doesn't help you there, it doesn't help you here. No. Right.
Don't be in the Trishanku for too long. Don't be in a dilemma for too long. Take that decision, try it out for a couple of years.
Yes.
Check out. So wonderful discussion. I just want to add, like I said before, I mean, there are lots of jobs happening, some really cutting edge work happening now in both the GCCs as well as the startups. Plenty of opportunity here. So do think about it. AK is back, but not sure whether we'll be able to hear him. Anyway, thanks so much. Priyadarshini, I think that question on kids, you can probably get it from GTX later. So, but thanks to all of you, Muni, Guru, Gautam, AK, really nice having you all on this platform. Great conversation. Hope to do a story on this at some point. Shobha, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sujit. Thank you for moderating this session for us today. And of course, I'm sure it was amazing, informative, and very insightful for all our listeners. And thank you to each one of you for being a part of this #IdeaCon session. And I'm sure for your valuable contributions, for sharing your success stories, the challenges you faced. I'm sure a lot of their questions have been answered. And like it was clearly highlighted in the panel today that, whenever you feel that it's the right time, trust that it is, I guess. So thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.